Welcome to the Nailsin Ratings. Sci-Fi Channel produces, well, a lot of crap. But every now and then, they'll have a show that's pretty good. In fact, some are really good. For instance, there's a show called The Expanse, now in its third season. Yes, it's so good! So they canceled it. Probably one of the reasons that it's so good is that its production company foots the bill for it and does the whole show. So SYFY is basically a distributor for it. And the production company says, hey, they're going to try to shop it to other networks. I say, I guess that would mean like Netflix or Hulu. And I hope they succeed because it is a good show. And it's been described as the Game of Thrones of science fiction. And that does hold true. It's nowhere near as popular as Game of Thrones. It doesn't have that gravitas and that pull. But the overall, it's truly an ensemble cast. No one's really the star. Thomas Jane starred in it. Spoiler, his character met his demise. Or did he? If you follow the story, you can see where things can happen. But anyway, it's an interesting setting for this show in that it takes place in our star system in the future. And the credible idea is that space travel, the most likely outcome would be we would travel and colonize the Mars and some of the asteroids out there and have space stations and the like, and make this space community within the solar system. And over time, there's divisions formed. Mars is against Earth, Earth is against Mars, and then people who live in the asteroid belt are against the other two, and, and vice versa. And so the background here is that they're on the verge of war, and all that sort of thing. But would there be any contact with aliens like Star Trek or Babylon 5 and that sort of thing? No, but similar to Game of Thrones, in that when Game of Thrones begins, the audience knows that all their sort of mythological creatures and whatnot and magic and all that is true. But at the time the story starts in Game of Thrones, there are quite a few people are kind of dubious about it. And the Age of Dragons was gone, it was over, and all that. And quite a few were dubious about the White Walkers. Now, the audience knew immediately the White Walkers were real. We saw one of them at the beginning and all that sort of thing. But, and over the course, it's all true. There's sorcery, there's dragons, there's, White Walkers. The dire wolves show up, and all this stuff is like the return of an older age coming back to them. And they've almost forgotten and all that sort of thing. But the idea that they were dubious of his existence and all that. Here in the science fiction and outer space stories, well, what's the equivalent of dragons and goblins and whatnot? Aliens. And here you have this star system's society living out in their troubles and whatnot. And what form would contact with aliens be when the distance between stars is so great that you couldn't travel it, and it seems rather dubious that they could, too, short of hyperdrives and wormholes and the like. There's a corrupt group of people experimenting with what appears to be an alien life form, what they call the proto-molecule, and that's the White Walkers of The Expanse. If you want to keep with the comparison, which I'm in that corner. So it's a fascinating look, whereas most science fiction tends to follow in the Star Trek / Star Wars mode of outer space and that sort of thing. Whereas here's one that are rare. The only other thing I can think of is the movie of Outland that was starring Sean Connery in the 80s. And that one which it doesn't get a lot of mention, but I quite liked it. It's like like Gunsmoke in outer space. There's no aliens to speak of. It kind of has the look of Alien, the Sigourney Weaver movie that Ridley Scott did and all that. But there's no monsters. There's just people committing crimes and that sort of thing. But they're living out in this harsh environment in outer space, living on an asteroid which is analogous to the Old West of untamed territory and that sort of thing. And so it works like that. And boy, I don't know who owns the rights to it, but that might be a good premise for a TV series too. But here The Expanse has this, and of course the mystery of the proto-molecule builds over time throughout the story. Meanwhile, you have the threat of the war and the relationships between them, and you have your characters that are the heroes who are just desperate to escape the whole thing, and they can't. And meanwhile, of course, the proto-molecule is there. Boy, it's really depressing to hear that it's coming to an end when you've got all this unresolved stuff and you want to see it resolved. So, shame on sci-fi. The problem appears that it's popular on viewing, but unfortunately, a lot of people are viewing it on demand and that sort of thing. They're not viewing it live as it broadcasts, and sci-fi is staying with the old model of broadcast television. And so the ratings were not up to snuff to what they wanted, and they're going to keep on with other programs like The Magicians. Yeah. Well, there you go. It's a sad set of circumstances, but hopefully the production company is successful in selling this show to another network such as Netflix and or Hulu. Amazon, I don't know that can happen because boy, did they put out a lot of money for Lord of the Rings. So I know they got a lot, but I don't know. And the idea of selling, hey, buy our 4th season might be somewhat difficult, but I'm hoping they're successful because it's a show that deserves to be seen. It's good. So yeah, oh yeah, 5 out of 5 stars for The Expanse overall. And no stars for Sci-Fi Channel. That's really really small-minded of them, and it's just too bad. All right, thanks for watching and listening. Like and subscribe. Check out the link description below for the links to my mini stores that have tons of goodies for you. Yes, yes. All right, goodbye.